The coffee mug stopped halfway to his mouth when the man in dress white stood up. My brother-in-law Derek had been laughing, loud enough that half the officers' club could hear him, but now his face went slack. "Siren," the man said, his voice cutting through the dinner noise like a blade. "Is that you? Let me back up." The invitation came in my sister Rachel's handwriting. Derek's promotion ceremony. Friday, 1800 hours. "Please come. Please." The word please, twice. That's how I knew she was desperate. I almost didn't go. 15 years ago, I'd walked away from my family. Not dramatically, quietly, the way I did most things. When your father's a Marine colonel, and your 3 brothers are all infantry officers, and your brother-in-law is Navy, well, when you join the Coast Guard, work search and rescue, and refuse to talk about the details, you become the disappointment. The punchline. The Officers' Club at Naval Station Norfolk was beautiful in that timeless military way. Polished wood, flags, photographs of ships and heroes. I arrived early, wearing a gray dress that hid the rope-scarred hands, the shoulder that still ached when it rained, the surgical scars along my ribs. My hair was down, softening the hard angles of my face. I knew, like someone's maidenette. Someone forgettable. Rachel found me first. "Cass." "Oh, thank God." She hugged me tight. She smelled like jasmine and stress. "I wasn't sure you'd come. You asked me to." "I know, but after last Thanksgiving when Derek said," she stopped. "Never mind. That doesn't matter. You're here." But it did matter. Last Thanksgiving, after too much wine, Derek had held court about military service. "Real military service," he'd said, looking right at me. "Not the Coast Guard. They're basically maritime cops. They serve coffee to lost boaters while the Navy protects the actual country." My brothers had laughed. I'd left before dessert. The ceremony was professional, dignified. Derek promoted to lieutenant commander, his 3rd stripe gleaming. Our father stood beside him in his dress blues, pride radiating like heat. My brothers flanked them. All 3 home on leave. All 3 decorated. All 3 everything I'd supposedly failed to be. Dinner followed. I found a seat at the far end of the table, next to Rachel's friend Monica and her husband, a supply officer who seemed kind. The conversations flowed around me, deployments, exercises, promotions. I nodded when appropriate, smiled when expected. Then Derek tapped his glass. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, especially family." His eyes swept the table, lingering on our father, my brothers. They skipped over me like I was furniture. Service runs deep in this family. The Kincaid name means something in the Corps, in the Navy. It means dedication, sacrifice, excellence. My water glass was sweating condensation onto the tablecloth. Of course, not everyone understands what that means. Derek smiled, that practice charm he used so well. My sister-in-law Cassie, for example. She technically wore a uniform. Coast Guard, right, Cass? What was it you did? Rescued some fishing boats? Gave safety briefings. Rachel's hand found my arm under the table. Squeezed. "Search and rescue," I said quietly. Right. SAR. Very important, I'm sure." He raised his glass. "To real military service. To those who faced the actual enemy. Not just rough weather and lost jet skiers." My brother Tom laughed. My brother James smirked. My brother Kevin, the youngest, the one who used to follow me around when we were kids, looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. Our father said nothing. I stood. The chair scraped loud. "Excuse me." The bathroom was empty. I ran cold water, let it pool in my scarred palms. The face in the mirror was 41 years old, weathered in ways civilians didn't recognize, and so tired of being small. When I returned, a group had gathered near our table. For men, all in dress whites, all with the bearing of special operations. One was tall, gray-haired, with a chest full of ribbons, and they tried an insignia of a Navy SEAL. He was staring at me. "Ma'am," he said, and the entire room seemed to tilt. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but the hair's different, longer, but your face." He stepped closer, his eyes widening. "Siren. Oh my God. It's actually you." Derek had gone very still. "I think you have me confused with," I started. "Commander Jake Matheson, SEAL Team 3. Currently assigned to Special Operations Command." He wasn't looking away. "But 15 years ago, I was a lieutenant on a training rotation through Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron. Hytron, you were one of our rescue swimmers." My heart was pounding. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. Rescue swimmer, Derek said, but his voice sounded uncertain now. She never mentioned. Hytron doesn't do normal search and rescue, Matheson interrupted, his voice sharp. They deploy combat-trained Coast Guard crews on Navy vessels for counter-narcotics and counter-terrorism, tactical maritime interdiction in denied areas. The three men with him were watching me now, recognition dawning on their faces. One of them, younger, with lieutenant commander stripes, spoke. Siren was a call sign from the drug wars. Late 2000s. I heard stories when I went through BUD/S. What stories? My father asked, his voice strange. Matheson's expression had gone reverent. Ma'am, do they know? Does your family know what you did? The officers' club had gone quiet. The kind of quiet that happens before explosions. She did search and rescue, Derek said, but he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. She did direct action maritime interdiction in the Eastern Pacific, Matheson corrected. She fast-roped from helicopters onto moving vessels. Vessels crewed by armed narcoterrorists. Vessels that shot back. He looked at my father. Sir, with respect, your daughter was part of the most elite tactical unit in the Coast Guard. The selection rate was lower than BUD/S for a while. My brother Tom leaned forward. Cassie never said. Because we didn't talk about it. Matheson's voice was hard. Hytron operations were classified, were sensitive. Still are some of them. The cartels put bounties on aircrew. We use call signs only. No real names over comms. The young lieutenant commander was staring at me. My instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Center told us about a Coast Guard swimmer who'd been on more than 60 tactical interdictions, who'd been shot at, nearly drowned twice, took shrapnel from a grenade, and never once refused a mission. He said she was the toughest person he'd ever met. His voice dropped. He said her call sign was Siren because she swam through hell and brought the devil's cargo back with her. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. That has to be exaggerated, Derek said. Show them your shoulder, Matheson said to me. The left one. If you're comfortable. I wasn't comfortable, but I was also done being diminished. I turned, pulled down the collar of my dress just enough. The scar tissue was extensive, white and twisted, covering my shoulder blade and wrapping toward my collarbone. You could see the pattern of fragmentation if you knew what to look for. Rachel gasped. Cass, what? August 2009, Matheson said. There were 6 of us on an operation off Columbia. We fast-roped onto a semi-submersible, basically a drug submarine. Crew was armed with AKs and grenades. One went off during the takedown. Your sister was closest. She took the blast protecting her co-pilot. He paused, his voice thick. She still completed the mission. Secured the vessel. Helped detain 3 suspects while bleeding through her dry suit. She wouldn't let the helicopter extract her until the package was secure. 3 tons of cocaine. Street value over $60 million. My father had gone pale. The Navy Cross Committee reviewed her case, Matheson continued. Recommended her for it. But she refused. Said she was just doing her job. Said recognition would compromise operational security. He shook his head. The Coast Guard gave her the highest award they could without her consent, the Coast Guard Cross. It's the equivalent of the Navy Cross. There have been fewer than 200 awarded in history. I don't understand, Rachel whispered. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. My voice came out steady, calm, the way it always did under stress. After my first year with Hytron, I came home on leave. Dad asked what I'd been doing. I said tactical operations. He said the Coast Guard didn't do tactics. When I made lieutenant, I called. You were all at Tom's wedding. Said we'd celebrate later. We never did. My brother Kevin was staring at his plate. Tom looked stricken. James, always the hardest, was watching me like he'd never seen me before. When I took the shrapnel, I continued. I was in the hospital for 2 months. Rehab for 4 more. I sent emails. Called twice. Dad, you visited once. You stayed 20 minutes. You said if I wanted a safe career, I should have joined the real Navy. Our father's face crumbled. Every time I came home, you introduced me as your daughter in the Coast Guard. Past tense. Like it was something I tried and quit. Like it was embarrassing. I looked at Derek. You called it serving coffee. You said I didn't face real enemies. Derek's face had gone from red to white to gray. The third officer, older, with captain's eagles, spoke for the first time. Ma'am, I'm Captain Richards. I worked with JSOC during the height of the drug wars. Your unit's success rate was legendary. You personally were involved in interdictions that seized over 15 tons of cocaine, disrupted 3 major cartel operations, and saved the lives of at least a dozen hostages on boats being used as mules. He paused. The DEA has a photo of you in their Hall of Heroes. Did you know that? I didn't. You're in full tactical gear, coming off a helicopter, carrying an assault rifle and a detainee. The caption says, Unknown Coast Guard Operator, Operation Caribbean Shield, 2010. The DEA director at the time called you and your team the most effective counter-narcotics force in the Western Hemisphere. Matheson pulled out his phone, tapped, turned it around. The photo showed me at 28, lean, hard, dripping seawater. My flight helmet was on, visor up, showing my face. Behind me, a helicopter. In my arms, a child. A little girl, maybe 6, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Colombia, 2011. Matheson said quietly. Cartel was using families as human shields on transport vessels. You fast roped down while taking fire, secured the vessel, found this kid locked in a hold. You carried her out while the boat was taking on water. My hands were shaking now. I remembered her. I remembered all of them. The Coast Guard doesn't advertise this work, Matheson said to the table. They can't. It's too sensitive. The cartels would love to know names, faces, families. So the operators stay quiet. They do the work and fade back into the service. No press. No recognition. Just a job. He looked at Derek. You said she served coffee. The truth is, your sister-in-law is one of the most decorated combat veterans in this room. She has more confirmed drug seizures than most DEA agents. She's been under fire more times than most infantry officers. And she did it while the rest of us weren't paying attention. Derek's mouth opened. Closed. No sound came out. My father stood slowly, his chair scraping. He was 70 years old, a Marine colonel who'd served in 3 wars, and he was crying. Not loud. Just tears, silent, running down his weathered face. Cassie, he said. Baby girl. I didn't. I never. You never asked, I said. None of you did. You had your definition of service. Infantry. Ships. Combat zones you recognized. What I did didn't fit. So you decided it didn't matter. Tom stood. Cass, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. We were ignorant. We were arrogant. We made assumptions. You made jokes. I corrected. At every family gathering for 15 years, you made jokes about the Coast Guard being a taxi service. About me hiding from real military work. I looked at James. You told your squadron I'd washed out of something harder and settled. You told them I was the family embarrassment. James flinched like I'd hit him. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. Knowing would have complicated your story. Kevin finally looked up. He was the youngest, 35 now, but I still saw echoes of the kid who used to build model ships with me. I should have defended you, he said quietly. Even if I didn't know the details, I should have trusted you. I should have stood up. I'm sorry, Cass. I'm so sorry. Matheson stepped back, giving us space, but his presence was a weight, a validation from someone who understood the work. The other officers watched with a mix of respect and discomfort. Rachel touched my arm. I knew you were brave. I always knew. But this. Her voice broke. You're a hero, an actual hero, and we treated you like you were nothing. Not nothing, I said. Just less than. Not quite enough. Not quite the right kind of service. Derek had sunk into his chair. He looked smaller now, diminished. I humiliated you. In front of everyone. I made tonight about proving I was superior, and I. He looked up at me. There's no excuse. None. I'm a small man who needed to feel big by making you feel small. Yes, I agreed. You are. He nodded, accepting it. For what it's worth, and it's not worth much, I'm sorry. Truly. My father crossed the distance between us. Up close, I could see the age in his face, the regret. I taught you about honor, he said. About duty. About service. But I didn't give you what you deserved. I didn't see you. I was so caught up in what I thought military service should look like that I missed what it actually looked like. What you actually were. Are. Matheson corrected gently. What she is. Heroism doesn't expire, sir. Dad nodded, not looking away from me. Cassie, I failed you as a father. I failed to protect you from my own ignorance. From their ignorance. He gestured to my brothers. I can't fix the past. But if you'll let me, I'd like to try to do better. Starting now. The officers' club was watching. The entire room had become audience to something painfully private. I don't know if we can fix this, I said honestly. You spent 15 years telling me I wasn't enough. That's not something you can apologize away. I know. His voice cracked. But I'm asking anyway. I'm asking you to let me try. To let me learn about who you really are. What you really did. Tom stepped forward. We all are. Cass, we were wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. Let us make it right. I looked at them, my father, my brothers, my brother-in-law. Men I'd loved. Men who'd hurt me. Men who were finally seeing me clearly. It's going to take time, I said. And you're going to have to sit with the discomfort of knowing you hurt me. You don't get to fix it quickly and move on. Whatever it takes, Kevin said. Captain Richards approached with a glass of whiskey. Ma'am, this is a violation of about 6 club rules, but he raised the glass. To Siren, to the Coast Guard operators who do the work nobody sees, and to the strongest person in this room. The entire officers' club stood. Matheson started clapping, then the captain, then everyone, Navy, Marine, even the civilian guests. They were applauding me, honoring me, seeing me. My father came to attention and saluted. It wasn't regulation. I was retired, in civilian clothes. But it wasn't about regulation. It was about respect, finally offered, 15 years too late. My brothers followed. Then Derek, shame written across his face, but his salute crisp and proper. I returned it, muscle memory overriding emotion. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Matheson found me by the window. You saved my life, he said quietly. That operation in 2009. When the grenade went off, you pushed me clear. Took the blast yourself. I never got to thank you properly. We were extracted to different facilities, and by the time I tracked you down, you'd retired. You don't owe me thanks. It was the job. It was more than the job. He smiled. The community hasn't forgotten you, Siren. The stories still circulate. The new generation of tactical crews, they hear about the legend. The swimmer who never quit. Who never broke. You changed what people thought was possible. The words settled somewhere deep. My father approached slowly. Can we have dinner? Just us? You can tell me about your service. The parts you can tell me. It'll take more than one dinner, I said. Then we'll have as many as it takes. He looked older now, vulnerable. I want to know my daughter. The real one, not the one I invented in my head. Rachel joined us, slipping her arm through mine. You're staying with us tonight. No arguments. We're going to sit up late, and you're going to tell me everything. And tomorrow, we're going to start over. As sisters who actually see each other. I looked around the room, at the flags, the photos, the military history embedded in every wall. I'd spent 15 years feeling like I didn't belong in spaces like this. Like my service was somehow less. But Matheson was right. Heroism didn't expire. And neither did truth. Okay, I said to my father. Okay, we can try. His smile was tremulous, grateful, real. Behind us, Kevin was talking quietly with Matheson, asking questions, learning. Tom and James stood together, looking lost, but willing to find their way back. It wouldn't be easy. The hurt ran deep. But for the first time in 15 years, there was possibility. There was light. I'd jumped from helicopters into hostile waters. I'd faced down armed traffickers. I'd survived fragmentation grenades and months of painful rehab. I could survive this too. I could survive being seen. And